Okay, well, we have two things on the agenda for the Finance and Budget Committee meeting today. Let's start with the roll call, however.
Counselor Kelly?
Here.
Counselor Moore?
Here.
Mayor Reed?
Present.
Counselor Barbell?
Here.
Counselor Brody?
Here.
Beth, would you mind throwing up on the screen the reserves checklist I sent?
Sure. Supplemental addendum with Shackner.
You got, oh, yeah.
Can you Shackner?
Well, you got one right in front of you there. But I've got, oh, a pen. Yes.
You got any idea how much it's gonna cost?
I'll give you a pen, Ira.
10,000, 100,000, 1,000?
Well, maybe I won't give you a pen. Well, there you go.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've got a copy of that. I've got a copy.
Edit the finance, edit the agenda. The finance agenda. So that's on the agenda there.
Right.
Mayday.
Okay. That's supplemental agreement.
Future reference.
Thanks. Which chapter is
Okay, so
You
the
have to send somebody out there.
first thing we'll do today is go through this checklist. This shouldn't take too very long. The first question is, how's the organization's general financial health? So let's look at the questions underneath that, and that'll help us answer question number one. Is there a structural deficit hidden within? The answer to that question is yes. There is a structural deficit hidden within. And we'll look at the 5-year plan next, and I'll show it to you. Does the organization normally maintain adequate or better reserves? And the answer to that question, my estimation is, yes, we do currently. We've had a long fight to get there, but yes, we're in a good position now with regards to that question.
Well, for 2 years we have, but the
Yeah.
previous 5 years we haven't, and the next 3 to 5 years we won't again. So is
Yes.
it really the answer yes? I said the answer is no.
Well, I think, we can go 50-50 on that. Are they good today? Yes. Will they be good tomorrow? Probably not. How about that for an answer? Does it adhere to a well-constructed, up-to-date, long-term financial plan, one based on tested assumptions, intelligently projected into the future, and spanning at least 5 years? Well, our 5 to 10 year plan says that yes, we do project into the future, and we span at least 5 years. That's a relatively new thing for the council. Only in the last 3.5 years or so have we done that. Second question is, can reserves be maintained? The questions below that are, can the reserves be quickly replenished without financially crippling the organization? Any thoughts on that?
No.
I think you're right. I think the answer is no. It would be difficult to dig out of, say, the financial mess we were in, say, in 2016, 2017. That was very difficult to dig out of. We did it, but it was not easy. And then the next question is the immediate crisis a 1-year event?
And that's a no.
I think the answer to that is no also. So, are there opportunities for operational improvement? Number 3. For example, should changes in processes or practices that have been forced by the crisis, such as teleworking and virtual meetings, or other improvements to operations be continued after the pandemic? Any thoughts on that? I see one person shaking his head
I
saying
think so.
yes.
I think it's, yes. I think we should be looking very hard at them.
Okay. And I think, this pandemic has gotten us all to start talking about, well, how do we do things more efficiently in the city? And some efforts are being made right now to do that. So the answer to that question then is yes. If so, do they require additional investment now to be successful into the future?
Some do, some don't.
Some do and some don't. Okay. I think one thing that comes to my mind is that the IT efforts that we've been talking about should probably go forward. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Does the council agree with that the IT projects that we've talked about in the recent past should go forward?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And last, are there any good alternatives to using reserves? Are we as leaders taking the simpler, easy political path by using our reserve funds? And what about reorganization, changes in services or service levels, partnerships with other jurisdictions, downsizing, or looking for innovative ways to reduce operational costs?
I think we're looking at a number of those.
I do too. I think, what comes to mind here is the recreation department, looking for ways to farm out some of that work so that it can be done more efficiently and at a lower cost. Other things that come to mind?
We're looking at both fire and police and trying to identify different ways that they could operate their programs.
Okay. So we have about $2.1 million in our fund balance today, as I understand it. Does anybody have any thoughts on what a comfortable number would be to draw that down to?
$2.5 million.
Well, one question is, what should your reserve fund fees be? I mean, based upon other organizations, I've always thought it should be 3 times your fixed expenses for 3 months.
We're sort of, a few years back, the council decided that a fund balance of 5 to 10% was appropriate. And that's what the comptroller's office was suggesting at the time. But we have since reconsidered that, and we probably should change our policy about it. We are self-funded for health insurance, so that could cause us some catastrophic losses at any time. So,
Those are actually covered though.
Oh.
Catastrophic losses.
okay,
They're
yeah,
limited by stop loss.
there's an upper limit on that, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
125,000. So you can have $1 million loss, but your stop loss is 125,000. And we have big claims every year, and they're budgeted right in our current numbers. And so you don't have a $2 million hit coming in from healthcare costs.
So your maximum loss per case could be 125,000 per person.
That's correct. And we run big cases, 5 or 6 a year, every year, they're in the budget, so.
Really?
There's protection there. Now, what we're not covered for is the type of loss that, could happen from negligence.
So
One of the fire department.
Yeah, if there were punitive damages assigned to that claim, not covered by insurance. That could be whatever, sky's the limit.
And we also got an aging population. More people who are on our health care plan are retired than are actually working for us. And they're getting older and older and more costly. Procedures going up. And if we have repeated claims, our insurance isn't gonna stay at the same premium, it's gonna go up. There's no free lunch, right? Insurance is just simply try to pool money over time. If our claims go up, our insurance is gonna go up too.
Well, the cost for claims doesn't go up in the older brackets, it's mostly the pharmaceuticals, the prescriptions. The claims are happening more between the ages of 40 to 65. So that's the active people.
Okay, we're trying hard to keep this at a high level right now and
Yeah.
talk about
I
dollars.
just want to
and-
make sure that, you understood that there's not this catastrophic loss, waiting to happen in our healthcare, and we're just sitting in the corner hoping that it doesn't happen. We do have stop loss insurance and have since 2006, and it's something that you do with a self-funded plan.
How much is our budget for catastrophic claims?
It's right within our $4 million, let's say, for the general fund expenses alone. I mean, we budget for 5 or 6 large claims every year. So, you have more some years, and you have less some years.
So-
$500,000 safety net.
Yeah, the stop loss insurance premiums are in the $750,000 of the total cost of the healthcare across the city, and that pays for the limitation of $125,000 per large claim.
So the question is then for the council, what is the right amount to draw from our reserves to fund any shortfalls in revenue that we have this year? Is it zero, or is it 2.1 million, or is it somewhere in between? That's the question we must answer. It's an integral part of creating a budget for next year. This is the first year in my memory that we've really had losses in revenue of such large magnitude. So we have to do things a little bit differently this year. Nobody asked for COVID to come be with us, but COVID is here. So what is a good figure? What are you comfortable with? Are you comfortable with, say, 10% of our $2.1 million, 200,000?
I could probably live with that.
200,000 is as much as we are willing to take out of our
But
fund
that would be
balance.
mine. I think our job is really to try to not take any.
I think the thing that we all need to keep in mind is that this crisis doesn't end on December 31st. It may go well into 2021 and even 2022. So it would be unwise to draw down our fund balance very much.
Well, we already are, because we budgeted for a fund balance of $2.8 million by the end of the year, right?
Yes, we
So even
did.
if you draw it down by 200, you're really drawing it down by 700 compared to what we had said a few months ago was the appropriate number.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Mayor. We did anticipate a large surplus at the end of this year.
688,000 was the budgeted surplus. So that would put us at about 2.8 million at the end of 2020 if it came out that way.
Yes. So just some consensus here. Are we comfortable with 200,000 additional loss in our surplus this year? Or, I'm sorry, in our fund balance this year?
So stay running near a $1 million deficit is another.
We are running near a $1 million deficit. That is correct, sir.
I only get it at 408,000 from what I sent to everybody.
Yes.
The projected numbers,
Yes.
including the loss of 31% of the sales tax and 25% of the gain and 50% of the
Yes.
permits and licenses.
Mr. Marks, you've been excellent at predicting the present, and we appreciate that greatly. But we'd like to maybe have your assistance to help us understand what's going to happen at the end of the year and into next year, if you can, please. So right now, we think that we could be as much as 1.2 million in the hole at the end of the year.
But based on what?
Well, we could discuss that offline. I'd be happy to do that.
As I looked at every account for the third time and went down, and when I sent you the report.
So I'm going to ask you to get with me offline and we will discuss that. Any other thoughts on reserves and what to do with them?
Minimize their use as much as
Minimize,
possible.
minimize their use, okay. Anybody else?
We worked hard to build up what we have.
Yes,
and You never know what to expect. There's always some unexpected expenses that occur during the year,
yes,
every year.
yes,
So, we have to take that into consideration and not rely on the fund balance to fund whatever comes up, the rest of this year and next year. There will be something that we didn't anticipate, I believe.
okay. Any other discussion?
What has been the normal drawdown from the reserve fund balance?
Well, back during the, the time frame of, say, 2013, 2010 through 2016 or so, the typical drawdown was 1.2 million per year on the average. And of course, that took a very large, healthy fund balance of, I believe it started at maybe $10 million, and that was drawn down to below zero by 2017.
You're saying the city of Blackford had a $10 million emergency fund balance at one time?
I think it was about 7 million, but yeah, it was then drawn down to about zero, which is why we just made drastic things in 2017, the money ran out.
So one thing that I'm pretty sure all of us can agree on is that we don't want to repeat that. Well, it can only be repeated for a year or two anyway, so that just doesn't make sense. Any other thoughts on reserves? And
Well, I'd just like to see, as you to look at this, to put the reserves, what we're dealing with right now in terms of this year's budget, in the perspective of what we're going to be dealing with next year and the 2 years after that. Because we've talked a lot about a structural deficit, that we have programs and costs that are above what the tax base can support. And so I'd love to go back and let's look at the 5-year plan that we have and look at what are we facing next year and the year after. So it was about 3 years after, wasn't it, that we were right back down to that, we were in a deficit situation in the city?
yes,
If we didn't take actions on things?
that is a very good segue to the next.
COVID-19 or after the COVID-19?
Before we had COVID-19.
No, before we were looking pretty good. We had clear sky for probably 5 to 8 years. Because of some recent improvements, recent being 8 months ago now.
Okay.
Very recent.
That's an excellent introduction to our next topic. So Beth, if you would put our 5-year plan up on the screen, please, I'd appreciate it. Okay, Ira, will you pass those
Sure.
down, please? Make sure Mr. Marks and Beth gets one. Steve, would you pass these around, please?
Okay.
Well, Ira asked this week if I would provide during the Finance Committee meeting this week. Ira asked if we would go over the structural budget deficit and talk about that a little bit. I have some more copies if you'd like. You get a copy? I don't have any more.
That's okay, I'm not so.
It's on the board up there if you want to look. So what we're projecting at the end of the year for structural deficit is $1 million, okay? And then in 2022, about $500,000. So $1.5 million is our structural deficit. If we could find $1 million in permanent savings, we would have smooth sailing going forward. You can see that this reduces our fund balance when we have structural deficits, and the objective is to eliminate those. And the way that we do that is with, as I see it at this point, is payroll cuts. There's nothing really left in our city to cut. We've cut all the paper clips and the office expenses and everything else that we can do. To find $1 million in savings at this point, or $1.5 million, would require the elimination of a number of positions. And the way that we do that, hopefully, is by attrition for the most part. As our employees age and retire, we just shouldn't replace them, basically. So I hope that answers your question. Ira, if you have any other related questions, please feel free to ask.
Well, I'm just trying to understand, and let's assume we get through this year, and you make a payroll at the end of the year. Then we're looking at still, according to this, is what you're saying, we're looking at, we still need to kind of reduce by close to $1 million in the next year as well?
Yes.
Or the next year would require $1 million reduction to get us to the point where we would be structurally sound in terms of the resources that are coming in versus the outlays and expense?
Yes. Yes.
I thought one of the things we were exploring was creating an LLC. Using the LLC to dispose of surplus property that nowhere makes or matches the city's projected, and taking that non-taxable income generating property and putting it back onto the tax rolls, generating income.
Right.
And that's where I thought we were heading, because in theory, the city's sitting on well over that in property that it's not even using.
And up to 7% more property as a consequence of the annexation, generating a huge amount of property value there. The oval properties that I know both of you are very interested in developing. The property near the harbor side, which none of these, to be frank, are going to occur as public projects. They have to occur as private projects, championed by private developers, and not get ourselves into the same position of the city being the developer, the city then arguing with our own planning board, the city planning board, zoning board, hiring lawyers to fight the city lawyers, etc. We need to figure out a way for an LLC of some sort to really have a green light to developing property, and it's not happening.
Why aren't we getting an LLC?
I think there's a concern that some people prefer the city to be the applicant in a lot of these projects, which has just mired us time and time again in controversy and legal fees and GEIS expenses and staffing, etc., and slowed these projects down because they've all become politicized. Everybody agrees that we should be developing the harbor side and we should be developing properties on the base, etc. We can't do it with this system.
So that's why we need an LLC.
Absolutely, in my opinion.
So why aren't we moving? I mean, what I hear is we just got done trying to save back to Maslow's ladder of hierarchy needs. We have our employees, we're making our employees feel good, we got them the jobs, everybody's back to work. What I'm hearing is we've got to fire people again. And that's probably an alternative last resort. But at the same point, if we have a way to generate extra income without firing people, we should explore it. And the last thing I remember is we were talking about an LLC taking surplus city property that's not on the tax rolls and generating money and generating money by selling the property, generating money from property taxes, and income coming in that may well be beyond the $1 million that you're looking at as projected deficit.
Exactly.
Well, those are all valuable things for us to do, and they will generate revenue, no question about it. The only question I have is, how does that attack the structural deficit? That would be good for a year or two, or maybe even 3, but at the end of that period, we'd still have that glaring structural deficit facing us, and
But no,
We
you're
still
talking
haven't
getting
dealt with
property
it.
on the property tax
Right,
base, so we have
right.
permanent revenue coming in.
Right.
You might have a
You
40,
wouldn't have that
50,
yet
60 million
because
dollar.
the property generating income
revenue.
consistently.
Right.
The thing is that when you negotiate deals, you have to get better negotiations and stuff.
Right, but the city can't negotiate. The city can
Well,
put out an RFP and then have some sort of committee look at the various terms of the RFP, and LDC can go out and actually market properties. City cannot market properties. City can't go to a realtor and say, hey, listen, realtor, let's share the profits here.
Right.
And LDC can.
So why aren't we exploring that first?
I keep asking the same question.
So let's move in that direction.
Well, we can move in that direction. We can put it on the agenda of the governance committee in 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks.
Yeah, Dean's had it ready
Dean
for
has a
some time.
draft of a framework for it. Dean, if you'd send that to both myself and Steve, and I'll put it on the agenda for discussion at the governance committee in 2 weeks.
I mean, that way you have, because once the property's back on the tax rolls, it's generating income.
Sure.
And by generating income, then your debt may not be as,
yes, when those properties start to generate income, and I would imagine that'd be 2 or 3 years out, you're right, it would attack the structural deficit at that point.
And the LDC can do it in a year or 2 or 3 years. Look at what we're doing with Prime. We've been trying the other way. Well, we're 5, 6 years into Prime and still, no developments. Apparently there's gonna be a whole new series of public hearings through the zoning board over Prime. And that check in my office was from a project that a previous mayor proposed back in 2015. What year is this? 2020.
just sitting.
It's just sitting. That's money off the table that hasn't been on the tax roll because we tried to develop it as the city, and then we end up fighting as the city with ourselves, our zoning boards and our planning boards. Our planning boards and zoning boards hiring lawyers at our expense to fight with our lawyers at our expense. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But it's
I agree.
because the city was the applicant. The city cannot be out there picking winners and losers. The city can create a level playing field for success, help with creating that playing field, but we gotta let the private developers and a private agency develop these properties because the city has far too many conflicts and has all the politics that you see the signs as you drive home every day associated with the politics because the city tried to do it.
We'll put it on that agenda.
Well, that pretty much wraps up our discussion of the structural deficit. So, next item on the agenda today is to bring forward the resolutions to the regular meeting. So I'd like to make a motion that we do that at this point. Can I have a second?
I'll second
Jeff seconds, okay.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes,
Counselor Moore,
that. Yes.
Mayor Reed,
Yes?
is there any old business? Is there any new business?
Yes, our legal counsel has asked us to put on the agenda a resolution requested the mayor be authorized to sign a supplemental legal services agreement with Miller, Manick, Schachner, and Hafner dated August 20th, 2020, to then go forward to the council meeting. This is to extend the services and assisting us in creating that 7% of additional land in the annexation property that we currently own in the town of Plattsburgh.
You'd like to bring that motion forward?
I will, yeah.
Can we have a second on that, please? Okay.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Moore,
Yes.
Mayor Reed,
Yes.
Okay, any other new business?
They're waiting.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do that in work session in just a minute.
At this point, I call for a motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Moore,
Yes.
Mayor Reed,
Yes. Let's begin our work session for tonight. We do have a short presentation, and we do have a hearing on another issue at 5 o'clock. Just be mindful of that. The presentation involves the potential for developing the harbor side, something I know that we've all been very excited in for quite some time.
I will introduce Jacob Wright, CEO of Skyward Hospitality. Skyward is the firm who responded to the RFP that the city issued for development of Dock Street several months ago. We've been having some ongoing discussions with him, and we felt a presentation to the council of what they are thinking as far as a vision for development at Harborside. This would be an opportune time to do that, so I'll introduce Jacob and let him take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your time. So I'm Jacob Wright, Skyward Hospitality. We're based out of Lake Placid, New York. We're building a hotel currently that's under construction and will open in November. That is exactly this, on the water in Saranac Lake, New York. Our plan, what we'd like to do on the harbor, is duplicate that hotel. It's got a great L-shaped design that we like a lot and we think is good for this project, because you have rooms facing the water here, and then back over to the marina and the city here, and the least amount of rooms are on this side facing the sewer plant. The sewer plant obviously has a wall, so we like this design. Part of what I've talked to Matt about that's going to be a little difficult, but I think we can work through it, is we would want to redirect this road here and take this out, because this is going to be 4,000 square feet of meeting and wedding space. There's not much in our feasibility studies in Plattsburgh for weddings and meeting space, so we believe this would be a real wedding palace, basically. So we would like this to be all green all the way through the park. We don't want cars and trucks coming in where people would be having their weddings and meeting events, right? So we redirect that. The design would be very, very similar to this, and we did a little. This isn't. This is just a little kind of view from the water. Obviously, it's lit up. It won't be that bright, but just trying to kind of show you what it looked like from the water. So I've been talking with Matt for probably 3 months. We've got the RFP in. We've been awarded that, and we're moving towards finalizing the PSA and actually moving forward so we can start doing the seeker and all of the technical things that you have to do to actually build a hotel. So our company, just a little bit more about our company, I guess, is, the project in Saranac Lake. We're also building a boutique hotel in Tupper Lake, New York. We're very good at building difficult projects in difficult markets that are difficult to finance. So I know that obviously with COVID and everything, it's very hard to get hospitality financing these days, but we're actually executing. Our owners have owned and managed over 500 hotels, and we have the ability to pull a project like this off. So we're very excited. I wanted to kind of show you what we're thinking today, because with this site, it's kind of like today, this is actually owned by the city, so they have to be chopped off, subdivided up. There's some technicalities that I'm going to have to work with Matt and the team on, and this sliver of land and everything like that. Obviously, we have a shared parking agreement with the boat launch and everything. But, so there's some technical issues that we have to work through to be able to make it clean enough to build a hotel on it, but I think we got a really good plan and we can make it happen. So I guess questions or?
Would you need the parking lots in the back there as part of your parking capacity?
Yeah, frankly, we'd like to buy the whole 11 acres. I'm not presenting this today, and I'm not putting it in my plan, but it's enough acreage where we could build a second hotel if this is successful. And that would be probably more of an extended stay, more for business travelers. So we would like to have the whole lot. And frankly, I think it'd be easier than subdividing, cutting it up.
Excuse me.
Rather than, rather than having the city essentially be a co-applicant in this, are you able to work with a local development corporation
Yeah, we would
As a
prefer that.
partner.
I think it'd be cleaner and easier to do.
And what about your time frame? What kind of time frame are you looking at here?
So realistically, I think Matt will help with this, but I think the subdivision, the city, to clean up everything the city needs to do will probably take at least 4 to 5 months. So my goals is I would like to have a signed PSA so I can start spending money. So to get this where I can get planning board approval and ZBA, everything that we need approval-wise, it'll probably cost me $300,000, $400,000. So before I spend that kind of money, I'd like a PSA, so I know that I'd actually have the ability to do it. So the city, what I've talked to Matt about, it'd be a parallel process. City would clean up the land, get the subdivisions done, make it viable for a hotel, because obviously you can't sell this piece of property with your building over here involved. No, the city has to own that still, obviously, right? So that would probably take 5, 6 months.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, if we keep really pushing. So on the parallel to that, what I would like to do with as soon as I get a PSA, is I would start ordering traffic studies and seeker and get the civil engineers involved and really put together. So we did this in the office, right? So get a real site plan, and hopefully it takes us usually 45, 60 days to approach the planning board. So as soon as I have a PSA done, approach the planning board in about 60 days, and then that process depends on the city. I've been all across America. Some take 2 years, some take 3 months, right? But from everything Matt said, we could probably get through that process within 5, 6 months if we have everything straight on our side. So I think all
Well,
in
it depends on how
realistic.
political it becomes. We've been working on Prime for 5 years now.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
But
Well, we
under
certainly wouldn't
LDC
do 5 years, yeah. So
Yeah.
I would meet with the local groups, and, they may or may not like it, but I would certainly meet with them up front and tell them what our plans are, and hopefully I could take their suggestions and make it less political. Because I know that obviously people wanted a hotel here for over a decade, so hopefully we can make that happen. So to finalize it, I was in a real long discussion there, but it'd probably take 8 to 10 months before we could actually put a shovel in the ground. And as you probably know, this is a brownfield site, so I gotta talk with the DEC and everything. But as I said before, complicated projects, this in Saranac Lake, Superfund site, brownfield site, difficult economy, so I can work through all of that.
In your initial, I don't even want to call it a concept paper, but your 1-pager, 2-pager, you had an idea of a hotel, and then potentially if the whole 11 acres becomes part of this project, you had business, like a business building or something that you were
Yeah, a little
talking about?
office building.
An
So-
office building?
Yeah, to be direct on that, I pulled that back because I don't want to confuse being able to get this approved with worrying about an office building that might happen 3 years from now, right? So I think the smartest way to get this done and actually get it in the ground is to just focus on this and say that, there's land there and there's potential in the future, and I'd come back to the planning board and the city council if it makes economic sense.
Okay.
But really, the main goal here is to actually get it done, right? Because it's been a decade, right? So if we take a run at it, I want to take a real honest run at it, see if we can actually make it happen.
You missed a conversation just before you came in when we were talking about our budget reality, and I think we all believe it's very important to get properties on the tax rolls efficiently and quickly. And obviously this is one of the biggest developable parcels we have. There's a couple more that are very large and significant too. So I like what I hear when you say that you've got the incentive to get this done quickly, because we do too.
Yeah, so the 5 years, just to be upfront with everyone, the 5 years prime, I would be out. If it becomes an issue after 8 months, I'm out. Just 'cause I'm not gonna dump millions of dollars into it and hope that it might happen someday.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'll take an honest run at it for 6, 8 months, and if it goes well, then we'll get it done.
Well, we'll certainly work with you to create the environment that you can succeed, and knowing our limitations and whether other organizations like LDCs can do it in a more straightforward manner than we're capable of doing it.
Yeah, Matt and Ethan have been great, wonderful to work
Yeah.
with, very professional, and they know their stuff. So I want to be respectful of your time, but
Just one question. In your project, did you take into account of the little park that's in front of on the peninsula?
yeah, so I want to be clear about that, because that's what Matt, so the idea here is the whole reason I want to take this road out
Yep.
is the wedding space is here. So you would dump out of your wedding and there would be like a little pergola here where you actually get married, and the backdrop is the park,
All right.
right? So the idea is no concrete, no cars, we're dumping into the green space.
So would the park become property of the motel or would it stay?
No,
park?
it's a city property still.
And the boat launch would stay city?
Yeah, the boat launch is city, and then we would have a shared parking agreement with all these spots.
Okay.
And then this, by the way, is a restaurant, so the restaurant kind of on the water with a big deck out there, and it looks like a boathouse and everything like
Very
that.
good, Friday. My last question.
Yeah.
Do you expect any tax breaks?
Um,
Tax breaks?
Well, to be fair, this is something we would not decide. This is something you would apply to the IDA for a pilot if you were to do that.
Yeah, so
correct?
to be upfront, we're going to look for the best economic package we can get. So there's opportunity zone across the way. I've talked to ESD and everything about moving opportunity zones possibly, to utilize that or expand them. We're talking to ESD. We're gonna try to put together a good package. I know, so in Saranac Lake, pilots are a non-starter. I've built hotels in Syracuse, pilots are a given, right? So I'd have to figure out your guys' climate, right? But I'm definitely gonna try to put together an economic package that actually gets it done, right? And I know there's a mix of public and private policy, and everybody would like developers to pay all cash or something, right? But realistically, we have to figure out what we can do to make it happen.
But just
So
to be
I'm not
clear,
gonna
though-
BS you, we might ask for it.
But just to be clear, you wouldn't be asking us, they'd be asking the IDA in Clinton County for that. We can testify whether we think their decision is a good idea or not, but we're not a voting authority in that deliberation.
And to be clear, I'm not saying that we're definitely doing it yet. But, it's too early in the process to know, if we can put together an economic package that's good enough with ESD and with whatever program, new market tax credits or something like that, we might not need that tool to make it happen. One thing I forgot that's important that I should have mentioned at the beginning is every hotel we do is LEED certified, green energy, so everything is sustainability. I'm very excited about this green space here. If we park here, we can have this great entryway with gardens and everything. And then the other side out, so sustainability is very important to our company, and this would certainly be a LEED certified hotel with this amount of land, hopefully with a, they don't call it off the grid, but zero impact essentially. So we could put enough solar and other energy on it where it'd be net neutral.
Are you aware that we have some of the lowest electrical rates in the nation?
Yes, I am, yeah,
Okay.
which is great too.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Lake Placid, my hometown does, and Tupper Lake does, and
Oh,
they're on the same system you guys are, yeah.
yeah, municipal power.
Yeah, it's wonderful, yeah, the house is $50.
Have you met at all with John Ruff at the Water Sewer Department?
Yes, I talked to him twice. He's very excited about the upgrade. I told him the investors that I've already talked to, that's gonna be a critical part. So I've gotta be in real tight contact with them to see the drawings that he has coming out. He's actually talked about a possibility of a museum. He's very excited, and I'm excited too that he's gonna cover it up, because there's no possible way we could get bank financing or anything without that project getting done. So I think between that and the current environment, there's a real opportunity this can happen.
Yeah, I think that will look totally different, once
Yeah,
the
and like I said,
redesign on the water sewer plant takes place as well.
these rooms here, well, what I do is I stack those with elevator shafts and stairwells and housekeeping rooms. So very few rooms with this view, right? So out of 125 rooms, there's maybe 15 with this view, right? Everything else is water, marina, so it's a really good layout.
And as you know, we've been accelerating plans to create a facade, to do abatement of odors, everything on that property, knowing that we have to do that if that land will ever be developable. So
Yeah, he's
so
very
we've
clear.
worked hard and invested, I think, $19 million so far into various upgrades of water and sewer to enhance that property.
Great. Another thing is, what's nice about this is we're actually building this in Saranac right now. So we know how to do it, we know the local trades, we can pop it up. You know, it took us it's gonna be about 15 months to build the thing, even through COVID. So, this will be a little, we can tweak it, make a little, because we're doing it now. I hope you can all come to Saranac Lake in December and check it out, but it makes it easier for us to actually execute.
I did drive up to Saranac Lake to look at it, and it certainly looks very nice on the lake.
Great, thank you.
I think we need to move.
Have you? Yeah.
I drive by quite often.
Yeah, so Tupper's an interesting one. That's a tough one, but we just got our bank financing, so.
I think, folks, we need to move to our public hearing.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very exciting.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, man. Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, it came up pretty quick.
Well, we'll get that.
So let's let anybody in from outside. And we'll open the public hearing. The city of Plattsburgh is holding a public hearing to hear public comment on the possible.
Just 1 second, because I gotta open the door to let the rest of the folks in.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
City of Plattsburgh is holding a public hearing to hear public comment from the possible submission of Community Development Block Grant CBG ED application 102813 for the program year 2020 for the Vilas Home LLC expansion in the amount of $750,000. Anybody who's interested in making comments at this public hearing, please sign up and proceed.
There's a sign-in sheet on the podium.
Is there? Okay.
Ethan, if you could move over and take Matt's stuff in case somebody else wants to sit.
If you represent a single position or group, we ask you to nominate 1 to 2 members to speak rather than repeating. And there is a 3-minute time limit, please.
Did you say 3 minutes?
If you consolidate, you can have 5 minutes. If you're consolidated speaking, you can have 5 minutes.
She's not here, so feel free to sit.
Mr. Owens, you're a consolidated speaker on behalf of a group?
Just representing Meadowbrook.
Okay.
I do have some documents to hand out. Should I give those to the clerk?
Sure, you can hand them out for you. Thank you.
Just need one more for missing action.
My name's Bill Owens. I'm representing Meadowbrook Healthcare. We are objecting to the grant applied for by Vilas Home LLC. The issues really here are pretty simple. In fact, we have a situation in which there's been assertions in the application that there is an unmet need and that there are limited, if no, beds available to meet that need. The information which we're presenting indicates that at Meadowbrook, we have in fact 25 open beds that could fill this need, at least in part, with a larger problem of being unable to secure staff. And that is an issue related to obviously availability, but also pay. Meadowbrook is offering around $15 an hour, cannot secure staff. The applicant's proposal says they're going to pay $12 an hour for those same jobs. So it's hard for us to believe that the applicant can secure individuals to fill these positions. This results in a situation in which the only thing that's likely to occur is
if you will, the stealing of people, in other words, moving from one place to another, but not expanding the bed capacity through that process. So the bed capacity will stay the same. The ability to fill those beds will stay the same. It'll just move from one facility to another. In addition, as you, I'm sure, are aware, there's a CON required here, and the CON requires a study to determine whether or not there is a need in the community. We believe that since that has not been completed, this application should not be acted on, because if the study shows there is no need, there would be no reason to proceed with the application and pass it on to the state. So in sum, what we have is a situation where this application does not make sense to the community and even to the applicant, because there is the inability to secure the bodies to work in the facility, and we have 25, Meadowbrook alone has 25 available beds, and we think that Evergreen and Pine Harbor will also indicate the same thing. So it's a broader community problem. As you know, this loan is focused on reaching and employing low-income individuals, is one of its primary goals. Again, that's not likely to occur because they're not paying a high enough rate of pay to attract those people from other positions. Does anyone have any questions? No, there are other deficiencies in the application, which we have pointed out in our materials. We think that when you review that, the result should be minimally a postponement, if not an outright rejection of the application.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Any other speakers who would like to come and address the council on this matter?
I'll sign in. Hi there. I am Rayanne McLaughlin, and I am the Executive Director for Pine Harbor Assisted Living and Memory Care. Some of you are familiar with it, and some of you maybe need to, when COVID's done, come tour us. But we have a 66-bed facility, 20 of which are for memory care, so it's a secured memory care unit, and 44 beds are for assisted living. I am not speaking to either oppose or support the position. I'm just here to present some facts. You know, I always like to see people succeed. Worked very well with Jonah, worked very well with Eli with his current facility in Willsboro. But I just wanted to present you with some facts to make this decision. We currently have 3 open beds in our dementia unit. Dementia units are very, very, very difficult to fill. Some of you may have heard, well, it's very expensive at Pine Harbor. Well, that's not necessarily true, but I'm not here to sell you on Pine Harbor. I'm here to just point out facts. Our assisted living, yes, we do have a waiting list. However, there are times, certain times of year, that our waiting list, they're not ready, not ready. Especially right now, many people don't want to move in because of COVID. Second point, jobs. I could probably fill about 10 positions right now. We are constantly recruiting. Our pay isn't nearly, we're not for profit assisted living. We can't afford to pay what Meadowbrook pays and others, so we're competing with, we have the LPNs. We have resident assistants who don't require even a certificate. We hire for heart and train for skill. So bringing in people to train them, constantly recruiting. So my only concern is the jobs and the competition for jobs and filling. Our number one priority is taking care of the elderly residents. And I'm all for if you want to create a business to take care of residents. I think that's in our heart. I think that's in their hearts. They want to serve a need. But you can only serve the need if you have the people to come in to take care of them. And I've been running Pine Harbor for 13 years. Not much has changed, to be honest with you, in finding the people to work in the building to fill the need. So what good is having that many more residents if you don't have the people to take care of them? So that's my only concern. Again, thank you for your time. I wish them the best of luck if this project does go through. However, we need to make sure that we have the workforce to take care of those residents, and so we don't sacrifice quality of care. Anybody have any questions? Pine Harbor, assisted living?
This isn't
Go ahead.
really a question and answer. This is just
Oh,
a
it's not- I'm
public
sorry.
hearing for you to have an opportunity to speak. Is there anybody else that'd like to come and please address the council and bring up any other additional points?
Hi, everybody. My name is Jonah Milliken. I have been the administrator over at the Vilas home for the last 2.5 years. I'm in the process of moving back to Pennsylvania with my wife to get closer to family. But I honestly feel that now is a very appropriate time for me to move because the Vilas home is in really good hands. It's a place that I really care about. It's a place that I've given a lot to and spent a lot of time there. As far as staffing goes, the initial point, the Vilas home is a type of assisted living facility. It's categorized as an adult home. So the licensing for staff is different to that of the staff of Meadowbrook. As far as my experience with staffing the Vilas home over the last 2.5 years, I can tell you that we've had a lot of success with our staffing because, frankly, it's a really nice place to work. And Eli has continued that. One of his biggest priorities when Eli and Emily took over the Vilas home last year was that Eli's told me before a couple times he didn't want to screw anything up because for 130 years this place has been caring for people in Plattsburgh. And I think, you know, I had a small part in that. Maria Alexander, president of the board, while I was the administrator there, had a big part of that too. But we start aides who don't need to be licensed at $12 an hour. I can tell you 2 very successful hires that I made. One was someone who's working part-time as a housekeeper at Walmart, but had a great personality and wanted to get involved in being a caregiver. So we hired her at the Vilas home, and she's been there ever since, and she's a great aide. And now she has this new set of skills. And with this addition, we will need higher skilled employees. And I believe Eli's the type of person to invest in that type of employee to continue to develop their skills. Another example of another type of person that I hired is an 18-year-old going to SUNY Plattsburgh. She wants to be a social worker, but she wanted to get experience working and being a caregiver. So she's worked as an aide at the Vilas home. She doesn't drive, so she doesn't have to drive to the Vilas home. She walks over. I don't know. I know that staffing can be a headache, but this opportunity for the Vilas home and for our community and for seniors to be able to age in place at the Vilas home and not to age out of the Vilas home due to need is huge for this community. And I'm sad to leave. It's bittersweet, but I really care about it. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Any other members of the public who'd like to address the council?
I would like to talk, but I don't know if this is an appropriate time for me to speak.
Yeah, may as well. And please go up to the microphone though, so the audience at home can hear.
So my name is Eli Schwartzberg, and my wife Emily is sitting behind me. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you to the city council here for assisting with this. It means a lot. It's very helpful. The Vilas home it's been around for 130 years, and it's extremely important. It's has a design issue where there aren't shared bathrooms, it's dorm rooms. And in this day and age, people do not want to move into assisted living if they don't have bathrooms and amenities and that type of care. So we're very excited about this addition and pushing the mission of the Violas Home forward and adding additional care, continued care to the area. I do want to say thank you to Bill and Paul and Rayanne. I appreciate you being here, even though you are, have concerns, and I think that's a welcome thing. I appreciate your input. I have reached out to Meadowbrook to set up a meeting so that we can, I don't want for them to feel threatened or they're not going to fill their beds or I'm competition. I'm a real team player and I'm willing to work with them. I can tell you that I have two communities, and as far as the beds that were mentioned, I can't speak to their facilities. I can only speak to mine, but we don't have issues with capacity. We are very full very often. And as far as securing staff, it's true, staffing is very difficult in healthcare, but it's difficult because it's a difficult job. And what I spend a lot of time on is making my staff feel really appreciated and being there for them. I paid staff mortgage payments. I paid a staff member's electric bill the other day. Like literally, I paid people stuff just because they do backbreaking work for this community, for me. And there's a saying that I think is really true, in nursing homes and assisted living is, if you never lose any staff, you never have to hire any staff. So when people say I can't find staff, my approach is I don't ever want to lose any staff, so that's not a problem for me. And I know it's harder said than done, or easier said than done, but that's one of my philosophies. As far as the certificate of need, what Meadowbrook is referring to is there's two different licensure processes, one for nursing homes and one for assisted living. For nursing home, it's Medicare, Medicaid. They do have a certificate of need process where I don't really know much about nursing homes. I'm not a nursing home, but it is possible that they can be shot down and say, we're not going to add beds and things like that. For assisted living, it's all private pay, and the state doesn't limit that. I called the consultant, he says in his 20 years, he's never heard of a certificate of need being rejected for assisted living for not being need. I also have a market study done by a national group that shows that there's a strong market here, and I know that because I own these communities. So thank you. Thank you guys. I appreciate the community support, and I look forward to working together with everyone. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here and for the opportunity to help the Violas Home get into the next stages of its life. Thank you.
Any additional comments from the public in this public hearing? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Thank you very much, and you're all welcome to stay for the entire council meeting. Or not. Let's begin the council meeting tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Reed?
Present.
Counselor Barbell?
Here.
Counselor Kelly?
Here.
Counselor Gibbs? Counselor Brody?
Here.
Counselor McFarland? Here. Counselor Moore?
Here.
This week and next are very important weeks in American history. Whereas the United States of America was founded on a principle of natural law that asserts all humans are created equal and hence should have the same access to certain inalienable rights. And whereas this inalienable right was not afforded to African American slaves, in part until the implementation of the Emancipation Proclamation, and further part until the Civil Rights Acts, the 1960s, and indeed are not fully realized in effect even today. And whereas women struggled for the right to vote since a meeting in Seneca Falls, New York in 1848, and whereas their right to vote was not ratified by the U.S. Senate until August of 1920, almost 4 generations later. And whereas this 19th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States came into effect when it was officially recorded on August 26, 1920, 100 years ago. By the way, I was minus 39 years old at that point, and I think Councilor Moore was in high school. Whereas removal of legal discrimination in a woman's exercise of her franchise was one significant step in an effort to remove all the various vestiges of a caste system designed to promote one favored group or another over all others. Therefore, I proclaim next week to be Women's Suffrage Week in recognition of the centenary in which one hurdle was removed from a caste system in this country that even today will hold people back because of their race, religion, gender or gender identity, age, ethnicity, or myriad other observable characteristics entirely unrelated to their merit and potential contribution to our society and economy. Done in this city of Plattsburgh, New York, this 20th day of August in the year 2020. Thank you. Please continue.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on August 13th, 2020 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Barbell. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the city of Plattsburgh for the week ending August 19th, 2020 in the amount of $55,867.96 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Kelly and second by Councilor Barbell. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. You have in your packets your various routine reports for the week. Can I ask for any additional reports, starting with governance strategy and city operations? Councilor Barbell.
Yes, we've been, I've had a number of discussions with the Director of Finance, Richard Moore, and we will be bringing some information to the Governance Committee at the next meeting regarding looking at automating more of the utility bill payment system within the city. And I'll be sharing information in advance to the council and to the mayor about the draft that's coming out. And I think that's where we are right now.
Thank you. City infrastructure, Councilor Moore.
I didn't have anything new to report.
Finance and budget, Councilor Kelly.
We just had our meeting today, so nothing new to add.
Can somebody speak on public safety? Councilor Gibson, I think Councilor Barbell.
Yes, we've continued meetings with the police department. We had one yesterday with the chief and the captain, and I think we've gone about as far as we can right now. Need to kind of digest all the information that we received from those meetings, and we've elected to reach out to Chief Lawless and begin a series of similar type 2 or 3 meetings with the fire department to get a series of our questions answered about their operation. And hopefully by targeting the early September, middle of September, that we would be bringing to the council some recommendations on both departments.
Thank you. Plattsburgh Public Library, Councilor McFarland.
No updates at this time.
And MLD Board President, Councilor McFarland.
No updates at this time.
I might add that there is a local group that is hoping to be able to paint birds and other attractive fixtures on local fixtures like MLD boxes, DPW boxes, etc. downtown. So I just wanted to let you know, and if you have any concerns about that, please express that to me. But we are talking with MLD and DPW about appropriate sites for this artwork.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, it does.
Any other further reports? Seeing none, resolved, the reports as listed are hereby ordered received, and any written reports are placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office. Moved by Councilor Barbell and second by Councilor Moore. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. No correspondences, recommendations from boards at this time. Please continue.
Resolved that the bills ordered by the Common Council for the week ending August 21st, 2020 in the amount of $425,488.50 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Barbell, second by Councilor Kelly. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Are there any individuals like to please come address the council on any items on the agenda tonight? There will be another comment period at the end for any other issues of mutual concern. Seeing none, please continue.
Resolved that according to the request, therefore, the common council approves a budget transfer of $800 from corporation council fees for services 1142-00004440 to community development capital outlay 16330003000 for the unbudgeted cost of acquisition of land adjacent to the Reach Lane properties owned by the city of Plattsburgh. Budget transfer will not increase appropriations to the general fund budget and will not require the use of the unassigned appropriated fund balance in the general fund.
Moved by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Barbell. Discussion, and as you all may remember, this is a very small postal-sized property in the middle of our Ruger Street property that our legal counsel has been working for a number of months to secure from the Air Force. It was at one time like a VOR site or something for the airport. It's no longer needed in this day of GPS. And it's actually very good work you've done. I think we negotiated the price down significantly from what they were asking for, and we've done it with as little administrative overhead as we possibly could. Any further questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilor Barbell?
Yes.
Councilor Kelly?
Yes.
Councilor Brody?
Yes.
Councilor McFarland?
Yes.
Councilor Moore?
Yes.
The Governance, Strategy, and City Operations Committee selects Bonnie Black to serve on the Public Safety Citizens Review Panel effective August 21st, 2020.
And it's a simple roll call vote.
Councilor Barbell?
Yes.
Councilor Kelly?
Yes.
Councilor Brody?
Yes.
Councilor McFarland?
Yeah.
Councilor Moore?
Yes.
The Governance, Strategy, and City Operations Committee selects Herb Carpenter to serve on the Public Safety Citizens Review Panel effective August 21st, 2020.
Roll call.
Councilor Barbell?
Yes.
Councilor Kelly?
Yes.
Councilor Brody?
Yes.
Councilor McFarland?
Yes.
Councilor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore, the Common Council authorizes the mayor to enter into a memorandum of understanding, MOU, in a form approved by the Corporation Council with the Plattsburgh Housing Authority and the Samuel F. Vilas Home to pursue a competitive application for an Economic Development Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and to authorize the mayor to execute all necessary applications and grant-related documentation.
Moved by Councilor Barbell, second by Councilor Moore. Discussion. And this is pursuant to the public hearing we had earlier today.
Is the expansion money for restrooms or is it for more beds? You alluded to your speech, you were saying that.
So we're going to.
You might want to come up to the microphone, please, if you answer any questions.
We're building an addition, and once the addition connects to the existing building, and as soon as the addition is done, all the residents in the historic building move to the addition, and then we're doing a historic renovation of the historic building, and the original Vilas home will be front and center of the main piece, and the addition will be second fiddle to the historic Vilas home. But the Vilas home, so if there's 2 small dorm rooms now, the wall will be taken down, and we'll be adding a full bathroom and making the room bigger. So we'll be actually taking the current Vilas home and reducing the number of rooms, but adding more rooms in the addition so that they're marketable, and they're also going to be used for memory care as well. So.
And how long are you looking at construction time?
About a year and a half total.
When are you planning to start?
April.
So what's the net gain on the rooms?
So we're going from 42 rooms up to 112 rooms. We're adding 70 rooms to the 42 rooms we have now. And then there will be the availability for two people to be in a room. So a lot of times we have husband and wives who need assisted living, and they'll save money and they'll share a room, so we have some larger rooms. So that could be 1 room with 2 people. Sometimes we have lower income people that spend down, and sometimes on memory care, having companion is nice as a shared room because you have someone next to you and you're not wondering what's going on all the time, and you have a companion. So adding 70 rooms to the building, and it goes in basically a U. It connects to the current building, and then it goes along University. It's going to be really nice. We're really, really excited about it.
100% expansion in beds.
Yeah, we're going. We have 40. We have 44 beds now. We have 42 rooms and 44 beds, and we're going to 112 beds. I don't know how, it's possible we might have more than we're going to 112 rooms, sorry. So it's possible we might have more than 112 people, but we'll be under what the planning board approved us for. If I had to guess, I'd say we'll probably have about 120 people there total. It depends on how many husband and wives move in and stuff like that and how popular that is. In Willsboro, for 70 rooms, we have about 5 couples that share rooms, and it's been really great for them.
Over the bridge on the left-hand side?
In Willsboro, yeah. So my wife and I renovated the historic school about 8 years ago, and we got a CDBG grant, and the CDBG grant is incredible. It's literally like, one of when you get financing, you put equity, it's very hard to finance these projects, and it's one of the last pieces of money that really helps get things over the finish line. So it's been a great project. I don't know if I would have been able to do Willsboro without it. And it's a super big help here. It's a big project, and I know what I'm doing, and I have 2 facilities, but it's a big undertaking, and I'm excited about it. So,
Mr. Schwartzberg, Jonah, when he was testifying during the public hearing, he said something about the people age out of the violence home right now?
Yeah. So it's really sad. So people will live there for 8 years. We have one resident that lived there for 8 years, and everyone, it's a real family in the Violas home. For those of you who had, family members there, the residents and the staff, and they really get to know each other. So you have someone there who's 8 years, and the problem with the current license is a basic adult home, which is great because you can do medication, you can give people meals, 24-hour supervision. But as soon as if you get some dementia, or you can't get out of a chair, if you need a little help getting out of a chair, all of a sudden you can't be in assisted living, you're in the nursing home. So that's what the nice thing about the license is that it allows people to age in place. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a base level adult home and I'm making it assisted living, which is, for all intents and purposes, it's the same thing, it's the same licensure. It's just about 10 years ago, they basically said, hey, if you put smoke doors and you do fire-rated hallways and these sprinklers, you can call yourself assisted living. So most people got on board because the Violas home is historic. They can't change their name from adult home to assisted living, but for all intents and purposes, it's exactly the same. So I'm going to make those improvements with the life safety so I can be assisted living. And then there's something called a special needs assisted living, which I have in Willsboro, which is the only assisted living memory care unit in all of Essex County. So Pine Harbor, they have the only assisted living memory care unit in all of Clinton County. So I'm adding a memory care unit, but the nice thing about my memory care unit is that I'm going to have an enhanced overlay, and that's different than Pine Harbor. So what the enhanced overlay does is if someone can't get out of a chair, I can hire a CNA to say, let me help you. They've been to school, they've been certified. So there's a lot of people who don't want to go to the nursing homes, but are kind of in the gray area, socially appropriate, really want to be in assisted living, or they'd be home, that they're able to age in place. So to answer your question, it allows people who can't transfer, unmanaged incontinence, insulin, if you have a colostomy, catheter, different things like that, it allows us to do limited things there that allow people to age in place, and that's why a lot of people like it, because it's sad when you have to leave and go to a higher level of care if you're not quite there yet.
So if I understand what you just said, you're not becoming a nursing home technically, but you are allowed to provide a higher standard of care, or at least a higher level of care for people?
Yeah, nursing homes have their own set of regulations, their own inspectors, their own division at Department of Health, and I have my own. So basically, about 10 years ago, there's a lot of public input where they said there's a lot of people in nursing homes and government's paying a lot of Medicaid and Medicare dollars for people who don't need to be there. They need an insulin, but they can't get that. So what they said is like, you know what? We will allow you to do insulin. We'll allow you to do these basic things, not complicated. The nursing home is a great thing. I'm a big fan for the right people. There's a doctor there, there's physical therapy. If you're medically complex and you've got, complications or things going on, 100% the nursing home is the way to go. But for us, we're able to have a license that allows us to do a few things. So where a nursing home is like 100% doctor, RN, LPN, CNA, we're about 15% CNA and LPN and RN, so they're 100%. We have a little sliver of that staff, which is great because it provides upward mobility, but 85% of us is the same staff as assisted living, because most of what we're doing is assisted living. We're not trying to do nursing home. We don't want to do nursing home. It's its own animal. You have to qualify to be in a nursing home, and once you qualify, you can get Medicaid. So people in our building actually don't typically qualify for a nursing home where they would go to a nursing home.
Okay, so it serves like a need that is in between what we're providing and what a nursing home can provide.
Some of it, there's enhanced beds. So it's very similar to what we're doing now, but there's enhanced beds that allow people to get services. So if you go to the hospital, the doctor says you have to have a catheter until you go to a urologist. Normally they have to go to the nursing home. They can come back to us for 2 weeks. They can become enhanced, and then they go to the urologist, they take the catheter out, and then they come off enhanced. So it's just like a really great tool to be flexible to the changing care needs of a regular assisted living resident.
Is there a fee difference between enhanced and regular?
Yeah, there is. The fee is about $2,500 a month. So if you need a nursing home care or nursing home services such as transfer assistance, if someone's like a chronic transfer, if it's end of life, we'll do it. But if it's long term, we'll make a referral to one of the nursing homes. We're one of the major referral sources for all the nursing homes.
So the part probably is that other people may be objecting to you is because you're a feeder to their program and the supply will be reduced.
So I know that I don't have any issues with capacity. I don't have, my staffing at Champlain Valley is at 105% of what I need currently. The Vilas home is at about 102%. I put an ad on Indeed on Tuesday, and I've had 16 applicants for an aide, and I've hired 2 people already. So, I understand where they're coming from, but, and I feel bad for them because it's a complicated industry. Like, they may see me as like building beds, but honestly, you just have to offer like a really good product, take really good care of people, and treat your staff like gold. And you could add 200 beds to this market and there wouldn't be a problem. There's not an issue with the market, it's about people not wanting to go to nursing homes. That's my opinion.
And the Meadowbrook, they brought up staffing, and that they couldn't fill their staffing. And I think you said there was actually different licenses involved between those. Yeah, so
it's not apples to apples. A nursing home hires, these are great questions. Assisted living, you do not have to have a nurse. You do not have to have a CNA. You do not have an HHA. You can have an assisted living in New York State with none of those people, okay? So people come into assisted living, they go through a 40-hour training program, and we go through an orientation, and then they're on the floor, because people aren't that complicated. So Meadowbrook, all their staff, to my knowledge, or, I don't even talk about Meadowbrook, just a nursing home in general. They have doctors, they have RNs, they have LPNs, they have CNAs, they have occupational therapists and physical therapists. They're much more sophisticated, and they're dealing with more things. Mike, tells you what assisted living is. When you add an enhanced level, so out of about, if you had, just to use a round number, an assisted living or enhanced, if you had, 100 people, you'd probably have about 10 to 12 where all 100 people in nursing home would have to be licensed and certified. And enhanced assisted living, you'd have about maybe 12 or 13 people who were HHA, CNAs / LPN. So, the Department of Health gives us a little bit of ammunition to kind of help people, but when we don't have enough to take care of them, they're off to the nursing home, and we can't keep them if we're not in their best interest and they need a doctor down the hall and PT and everything like that.
Now, is Meadowbrook a nursing home?
Meadowbrook is a nursing home and rehab, and they get Medicare and Medicaid, and it's really completely different than what I do. I mean, we take care of elderly people, but it's like I know nothing about nursing homes. I mean, I actually probably know more than most people, but if you're in the industry, I don't know anything about nursing homes. I just do assisted living. It'd be like Lake Forest. So Lake Forest, it'd be if Lake Forest wanted to do an addition, which is like independent living, it'd be like me going to them and saying, I don't want you to do that, you're competing with me. And it's silly because, they can't get showers, they can't get medication, they can't get help with care. They're really independent at Lake Forest. So, it's the same industry, but it's a different level of care than what I do in assisted living, just like I'm a different level of care than what a nursing home does.
And Lake Forest is a nursing home as well?
Lake Forest is independent living
Independent living.
with services. They have no license. So if they wanted to get a license, they would have to have all the stuff that surveys and compliance and all the stuff that you hear about with nursing homes.
And Pine Harbor is a nursing home?
Pine Harbor is assisted living. Pine Harbor is, for all practical purposes, are exactly like Willsboro, and they're very, very similar to the Vilas home, except they have a memory care wing. So the only real difference between Pine Harbor and the Vilas home is that they were able to build later, and so they had the smoke doors, and they got the assisted living versus adult home, and then they added a secure memory care wing. Okay, the issue why they have a couple beds open is because when you want to do the reason why they have a couple beds open is because with enhanced care, if someone needs some help feeding or things like that, so a lot of people with severe dementia need other small basic services. So if you have enhanced, which I do, like I have a waiting list in memory care in Willsboro, because if they need transfer assistance or help feeding, or they have chronic unmanaged incontinence, I'm able to work with them. If they become complicated, persistent efforts, we call the nursing homes, and a lot of people end up with the nursing home, or we do end-of-life care right in our building. It just depends on the person. It's a very important niche that's not offered in this area, and I've been doing it really successfully, and we have a lot of baby boomers coming through. So, I'm adding rooms, but we're gonna, in 2 years, you're gonna be like, we need more beds. It's really, you got a lot coming down the pipeline, and it takes a long time, and I'm really happy to be part of the Vilas home and to be able to add more beds to Plattsburgh. It's right next to the hospital. The Vilas home is just incredible. I have staff there that have been there 23 years. I have 3 staff that have been there 23 years at the Vilas home. I have 15 staff that have been there over 6 years. It's incredible. It's incredible. When Jonas said he doesn't want to screw it up, what he meant is, I don't want, it's not that I don't know how to run it, it's that there's a culture there, and as a new owner, I didn't want everyone to quit and say, I said, I care about you guys. You have a system that's different than mine, but it works. Let's do it. I've actually learned from them. And then once we needed to fix things, we'd fix things. But I've had very little turnover at the Vilas home, and I'm very close to the staff, and I'm looking forward to the expansion and adding this socially minded and social impact business addition to the Plattsburgh, to the city of Plattsburgh.
So this application, we have a letter of support from the Chamber of Commerce on your behalf as well. Certainly the job creation, I have no doubt that we are going to need more beds in this community, because I've done all the demographics with the aging populations. You guys know all this. It's just obvious that we do need this capacity. It's a growing need. So I think this is a wonderful project. On the other hand, though, we are being put in a position to apply resources and pick winners and losers, and obviously there's some entities who we equally value in the city that believe this should not go forward. So I kind of wish it could have been done in a different way, as you know, because I don't think it's our position to pick winners and losers in the private sector.
Mm-hmm.
But if one were to pick winners and losers in the private sector, certainly this is as good a project or not as the Pine Harbors out there and the Lake Forest out there and the Meadowbrooks out there. We're glad that they all are able to take care of this very, very dire need.
And if I could just comment on that, I hear what you're saying. I haven't been awarded the funds yet. This is competitive, and the nice thing is, like anyone in the city, if they want to do an addition, they can come to you guys there's about $100 million or $1 billion a year that comes down from federal money, and anybody can come to the city and say, hey, will you guys help me with this? And I'm sure you guys will support them if it's something that's aligned with your city. And so it's not a zero-sum game. If someone wants to add, if someone wants to add an addition, they'll be here too, and they can apply. And maybe I'll apply and get rejected, and in a year from now, someone else will come to you and they'll get it. So, I don't think you guys are necessarily choosing. I think you guys, there's a city here for a reason. You guys are here to provide organization and order and support. And the way the government and HUD has this set up is that they want it to be funneled through the city. And when it's funneled through the city, they know it will be handled correctly and meet their mission. And you're just a catalyst for helping get things done. So I don't feel like you're choosing me. I feel like anyone who comes in front of you has the same opportunities that I have pursued with this grant.
And they certainly are very competitive. And
yeah, and I hope I get it. This is not a done deal. I need to get the grant. I'm just asking for permission to apply. I don't have the money.
Mr. Schwartzberg, if you don't get the grant, are you still going forward?
Like I said in Willsboro, this money is so important to the full capitalizing pie chart. Everybody wants collateral. So you got your primary lender, maybe you get 70%, and then you still need millions of dollars. You got to go to investors, you got to put your own money in, and everyone's like, putting money, and it's like, oh my goodness, like we put $2 million, we still need another $1 million, and then people say, I don't have collateral, I can't get a lien on this building, I can't get a lien on furniture, I want to charge you 20%, and I still won't do it, So yes, I need this to get it done. It's like, this program is here for a reason, and the best thing about it is it help. Like I'm helping low to moderate income people, and I'm lifting them up, and I'm providing jobs, and it's like a great grant for that. So I'm glad it's there. I do need it. It's the money that you can't get that's needed to everyone to go to the closing table. So it's very important. Yes.
Any further questions? Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Counselor Brody?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council accepts and authorizes the property owner to enter into a contract with the lowest price qualified selected bid for downtown grant program, 33 Bridge Street facade for renovation work related to the 33 Bridge Street project pursuant to the downtown grant program administrative plan.
Moved by Councilor Barbell, second by Councilor McFarland. Discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Brody?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
As you know, there's
Oh,
one
wait,
other
sorry,
item.
sir. We added F during the work session.
Yep, that's what I was bringing up. You can read it.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council authorizes the mayor be authorized to sign a supplemental legal services agreement with Miller, Mannix, Shackner, Hafner LLC dated August 20th, 2020.
Moved by Councilor Barbell, second by Councilor Kelly. Discussion?
Yeah. I came in late, so it was just discussed earlier.
Briefly, yeah. It was, so Miller, Mannix, Shackner,
I don't know who that is, yeah.
has been serving as special counsel for the city during the seeker review. Since we've completed that, it will be beneficial to have him continue in the role with helping serve as special counsel for the continued annexation process.
Okay.
Further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Brody?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Any resolutions for initial consideration? Any new business or additional council reports?
I was contacted by a constituent, and he questioned his utility bill and said that his water bill had a 44% increase because of some resolution that was passed in March.
It was a local law that was changed by this council for high demand users, correct?
So it was just this across the board, or is that just for?
It depends on the size of his pipes. It was one of the attempts that I think you've engaged in conversations with Mr. Ruff on this as a way to more evenly spread the burden of the cost of running the city. And one way that Mr. Ruff had proposed was something called a demand charge for large water users that may not otherwise pay taxes, for instance, or may pay taxes in some cases as well. So this was an IDC charge that I think this council had considered as a local law, considered it first as a local law at the end of last session, and then reconsidered it and passed it in early this year, probably before you came on.
And my other question was, I've been looking into special assessment fees and service districts, and I cannot find a code that authorized the city to enable us to have a special service district.
Would you be able to
It's not
work
in the
with the
book, and
council
I
on
couldn't find
that?
it online.
Yeah, I don't have that information offhand, but I can work with you to try to
Right,
find it.
because I'm still exploring other options.
Mhm.
And the fire department had $1,600 in overtime to go to a funeral.
I sure hope not.
The damage to another car.
At a funeral.
Yes.
And I understood that they'd said that would be paid out of their firefighters benevolent fund that they receive as part of insurance premiums as a consequence of us lowering the
We haven't
risk
met
rate.
with the chief yet about that.
Okay. And also, the funeral was at Old Gate, which is 3 blocks away from the firehouse. But they had to call in 4 firemen to cover for them because they were at a funeral. And
Well,
those
again,
firemen got
I
time and
hope
a
that we're
half.
not incurring overtime.
Yeah, I
We
don't- I
were
haven't heard
promised
that.
that this is something to be done within the routine work of the firefighters, and this issue has come up in another incident this year, as we all know.
Okay.
So maybe, it sounds like you are seeking clarification, so we'll try to get that.
I'm curious as to what we're talking about right now.
Oh,
but I guess.
I think he's referring to the firefighters attending a funeral with their vehicles, and an accident occurred, and he's wondering if there's also additional overtime charges for them to assemble to go to the funeral.
So they went to a funeral because there was an accident to deal with the
No,
accident?
No, they went to the funeral
Pay
and
respects.
caused the accident.
Huh, okay.
Any further questions?
I have something unrelated. I had a constituent call me, and this might be better for the next infrastructure meeting, but that's a little while off, so I'll bring it up now. She was talking about she moved into a new house, and there was some cans left of gasoline. And that was about a year ago, and she's still trying to figure out what to do with the gasoline. She's called around. No place takes gasoline, she can't just dump it. Some people have suggested to her, why doesn't she just dump it on the ground, and she doesn't want to do that for some very good reasons, I think. And we commiserated a little bit because I myself, when I bought my house 3 years ago now, there was a bunch of paint cans left, full of paint, and I still have no idea what to do with them. You can call the dump, and they say on September 23rd of this year is their hazardous waste drop-off. And that's only once a year. Apparently, you have to wait in line for hours on end. And no, they don't take gasoline and they don't take paint, so figure out something else to do. So we talked for a while because I still have a bunch of paint cans that I have no idea what to do with. And she has her gasoline cans that she's not really sure what to do with. And I don't think either of us are really asking for advice on what to do with our respective hazardous materials, but certainly that's a problem, because certainly if there's someone less morally inclined than this constituent or myself, they might be tempted to just dump that. And I have no doubt that people do that. I have no doubt of that because we hear it all the time from Mike and Mike, people dumping couches and TV sets on street corners and stuff like that. So I just thought it should be important to bring up, and I think it should be part of a conversation on dealing with those issues. And I don't know the answer. I don't have an answer. I have thoughts, but I do think it would be nice to get a discussion going, whatever form that would take, to sort of deal with that issue, because that's got to be a bigger issue than we hear about And it certainly is an issue that I think can be solved, and we should definitely look at.
Well, related to this, it came up in the tenant landlord committee meeting yesterday. A question about whether the city could be responsible for taking care of people's washers and dryers and couches and TVs, et cetera. And every municipality has some provision. It's often a free day to bring in your hazardous materials, et cetera. Or we, for instance, will go and pick up your TV for $30 if you call ahead, et cetera. And so you all developed, not you, but previous councils developed these policies that are being applied. And so you can certainly get together and discuss a more liberal policy for doing this, but be careful, because if you create a policy where it's okay for people to just put their couches and TVs, et cetera, out on their porches or out on their front yards and their gasoline, et cetera, I would guess that Mike Brody will tell you we'll be running around and spending tens of thousands of dollars a year picking up for people's hazardous materials or discarded items, even if they're not a customer of our garbage service. So why don't you look at what other municipalities do some research, come up with some recommendations, and change the policy if you wish, but please do so in a very thoughtful manner. In the meantime, we'll certainly log it into our complaint database and make sure that your concern or your constituent concern is drawn to the proper attention.
Maybe it's going to become another way for the city to generate income, doing the process for the community that nobody else does but once a year, but charge for it.
Right.
It's like the situation with the brush and leaves. No matter who puts it out, whether they're city resident or not, it gets picked up for free. The city should be charging for it.
Patrick, what kind of paint do you have?
It's oil-based paint.
Okay, too bad.
Yeah, it's way too bad. I hear that you can like fill it with cat litter or something.
Cat litter with latex, and you can take it right to the dump.
I can tell you the
Lots
answer
of
to
hard.
that, you just have to
Yeah.
dry it out, and it becomes regular trash. If it's pretty full, you may have to poke it a whole bunch of times to get it to harden up, but once it's dry paint, it's just regular refuse.
Any further new business or council reports?
Yes, Mayor, at the tenant landlord committee meeting yesterday, an attendee asked if I knew where the water and sewer mains are for the Underwood Trailer Park on Underwood Avenue, and I had to say, no, I don't know where the water and sewer mains are, but I did tell her I would try to find out for her, so could we put that one in the database, please?
Sure, and if you ever want anything in the database, just call, 518-324-CITY, and whatever your concern is going to be transcribed into a text document, and instantly put in the database and directed in the proper direction.
Okay, just by the phone call, it gets
Yep.
in the data, okay.
Or email city info, and it'll also be put in
Same
the
thing,
database.
okay, very good, good to know, thank you.
You bet. Any other new business or council reports?
Yes, I thought of something, the parklets, they're set to expire at some point, correct?
They're usually removed sometime in late December, September, early October. yeah.
September 30th. We may want to discuss, depending on the developments with COVID, and, what sort of phase and percentage of capacity restaurants can be at, extending that. I know, I could think of, a restaurant's had to spend a couple months being, out. I haven't been called by any restaurant owners, so this is just me thinking off the top of my head, so it may be unwarranted. But if we go into the fall, perhaps I can see some restaurants wanting to set out like space heaters or something and keep outdoor seating for longer. So that's just an idea to think in keep in the back of our minds in case that comes up.
And let's make sure we engage DPW, because if you have an early October snowfall, I think they'll have some concerns about where the snow will go.
Yeah.
But certainly, I think we all agree that we want to do our best to take care of our struggling downtown businesses.
Yeah, maybe want to like suggest keep outdoor parklets for as long as the weather permits or something like that. And if there's a, weather event forecasted to come in, and I don't know the answer, and I'm talking off the top of my head, so I don't want to lay out something that sounds stupid, but that's just an idea I had.
Any other new business or council reports?
Two last questions. Richard Marks wrote that email out. Did he send out to everybody?
Which one?
The one where the city, are we 85% in less debt than we projected, or are we 85% in debt? He put down the percentage of,
I don't know, I think he's working with the finance committee on that.
yeah, I didn't know which way we were headed, that's all. And I thought he'd be when he's gone.
Mr. Marks proposes that today we're about $400,000 in the hole at the end of the year. However, I predict that at the end of the year, we will be closer to $1 million to $1.2 million in the hole. And I'd be happy to show you the reasons why. One of the discrepancies is that there's no set aside for settlement of union contracts. And we've got a very big one on the table, and I don't want to talk too much about it, but.
I was just reading, I was confused, I didn't know if it was better or worse. And
Mr. Marks's view is that it's better, my view is that it's worse. And the difference is we haven't taken into account all the unfunded liabilities that we have.
And the property that we talked about acquiring, is that the River Lane property?
So
That
property
we've
we talked
acquired.
about acquiring is in the middle of it, it's this little thing, and it's owned by the airport, where they used to put like a light or something there
Right.
for landing planes or something like that, so it's a really small little property that's completely surrounded by property that we own.
So we're gonna buy that and own it all.
It'll be aggregated into our 220 or so acres on River Street. It's less, that's probably like a 10th of an acre or 20th of an acre, but it's just in the middle of our property. Any other new business or council reports? Any other closing public comments of any kind? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilman McFarland, second by Councilor Barbell. Roll call.
Council Barbell?
Yes.
Council Kelly?
Yes.
Council Brody?
Yes.
Council McFarland?
Yes.
Council Moore?
Yes.
Thank you all, and please recognize Women's Suffrage Week.